All right, welcome back to 3.6. So we're moving on to example 3. We just talked about what the slopes of our parallel and perpendicular lines are. Now let's actually talk about writing the equations of those parallel and perpendicular lines. So for this one, we're looking at writing equations of lines that are parallel to a given one. So we are given the line y equals negative 2x plus 3. We want to write the equation of a line that is parallel to this one that goes through this point. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is what is the slope of this line? Okay, the slope of this line here is negative 2. Now, the slope of my parallel line, so I'm just going to put a little parallel symbol here, is going to be the same as my given line. Okay, so my slope is also negative 2 because, again, parallel lines are going to have the same slope. Now, notice we are given a point that we are going to pass through. So it's going to be 1, 4, so I'm going to call this x1, y1. I have the point and a slope. So I am going to start with point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so for those of you going, but wait, it says slope intercept. I know. Okay, just hold on. We're going to start in point slope. So I'm going to plug in what I know. All right, I'm going to leave my y minus my y1, which is negative 4. So subtracting a negative is the positive. My slope is negative 2 times x minus my x1, which is a 1. Okay, so now this is point slope form. So in order to get it in slope intercept form, we are going to solve for y. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute my negative 2. So I'm going to have y plus 4 equals negative 2x, and then negative 2 times negative 1 is a positive 2. Okay, so again, all I did was distribute that negative 2 throughout the parentheses. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So I'm going to have y equals negative 2x, and then 2 minus 4 is a negative 2. So this is my equation of the line that is parallel to this one that will go through the point 1, negative 4. Okay, so they have the same slope. And again, when you're given the point and you know the slope, start in point slope and then just solve for y. I promise it will be much easier. Okay, so again, we have here a point. So I'm going to go ahead and label this as, actually, let me change colors. I'm going to go ahead and label this as x1, y1. And I want it to be parallel through to the line that goes through these 2 points. Okay, so let's clarify what's happening here. This point is the line that we want on the parallel line. These 2 lines are the points on the original line. So what I need from here is the slope. So the slope of my original line, we're going to label x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to find the slope of my original line, which is going to be y2 minus y1, 2, over x2 minus x1. Okay, so my y2 is 1 minus y1, which is a negative 2. So subtracting a negative again, that's like our adding. And then x2, which is 7, minus x1, which is 1. So 1 plus 2 is 3. 7 minus 1 is 6. So I have a slope of 1/2. So my original line has a slope of 1/2. So now my parallel slope is going to be the same thing. So again, I have a slope of 1/2. So now we're at the same point where we were for this earlier equation. I'm going to start with point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Again, I'm starting in point slope because I have a point on the line and I have the slope. Okay? So y minus y1, which is a 3, equals my parallel slope, which is 1/2, times x minus x1, which is a 2 for the point that's on the line. Do not get confused with this x1, y1. Okay, this was to do our slope. So actually what I can do to make things even easier is make all of these purple hold on. So that way you can see the difference a little bit clearer. So this is our slope for this line. And then this is our parallel slope for our parallel line. All right, so again, I want this in slope-intercept form. So that means I need to distribute my 1/2. So I'm going to have a 1/2 x minus 1/2 times 2. So if we kind of come over here, I don't know why I did it minus. 1/2 times a negative 2 is the same thing as saying 2 over 1. So across the top, I'm going to have negative 2. Across the bottom, I'm going to have 2. So this is a negative 1. Okay, just a quick reminder. Then from here, we're going to add 3 to both sides. And I'm going to have y is equal to 1/2. Oop, I forgot the x up here. Oh, sorry, guys. 1/2 x plus 2. Okay, so this equation here is going to be parallel to this one. They have the same slope, and then it will go through the point 2, 3. So if you have questions on that, please write it down now. Okay, let's look at our last example. We're going to do the same thing that we just did, except instead of using a parallel line, now I want my line to be perpendicular. Okay, so when I look at this line, my slope is 3, okay, right here. When I'm doing a perpendicular slope, I want the opposite reciprocal or the negative reciprocal. I want to flip the fraction, so 3 over 1, because remember all whole numbers have a 1 on the bottom. Okay, so it's 3 over 1, so I'm going to flip that to get 1/3, and I'm going to change the sign. So this is a positive, so this is a negative. So my perpendicular slope, so I do a little perpendicular symbol down here, so I don't get confused about which is which. Okay, so my perpendicular slope is a negative 1/3. If I multiplied negative 1/3 times 3, I would get a negative 1. Okay, and again, I'm given a point that goes through the line, so I'm going to go ahead and label this as x1, y1. And again, I have my slope. I have a point on the line. I'm going to start in point slope form. So y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. So from here, y minus y1, which is 1, equals slope, which is negative 1/3, times x minus x1, which is a 3. So again, first things first, we distribute that negative 1/3. I'm going to have negative 1/3 x. And then when I multiply it here, negative times a negative becomes a positive. 1/3 times 3 is a 1. All right, then the next thing, we're going to add 1 to both sides. And I'm going to get y equals negative 1/3 x plus 2. Okay, so these are my answers here. Okay, for my line that is perpendicular to this one and goes through this point. So the biggest things to remember is that your parallel lines are going to have the same slope, and your perpendicular lines are going to have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. Okay, the way that you solve the problem, it doesn't matter whether it's parallel or perpendicular. Finding the equation is the same process. The only thing that's different is, are you using the same slope, or do you have to find the perpendicular slope? Do you have to find the opposite reciprocal? So if you have questions on that, please go ahead and write them down, and then that way we can talk about them in class tomorrow. Have a great day, guys. Thanks.